A speaker for the day is Mr. Rajen Vagadia, President Qualcomm India Private Limited. So Rajan, I apologize for the delay. We had, as you could see, this delay.
Not at all, Sunil. I think I was feeling guilty when I had to make you guys switch this. The guilt is a little bit less now. So
yeah.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to you. You can have your time. Not
yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good.
Let me just do a brief introduction, sir. For the audience's benefit, we have Mr. Rajen Vagadia, VP and President Qualcomm India Private Limited. And today, the keynote that he's going to share is Qualcomm's experience in the startup investment space worldwide. As Vice President at Qualcomm, President for India and South regions, Rajan oversees the entire regional sales and business organization for all go-to-market activities under the Qualcomm Technologies licensing businesses. His key responsibilities are to manage operations focusing on driving growth through carriers, OEMs, and ecosystem partners. So, based in Mumbai, he has more than 30 plus years of experience in the telecom industry, covering diverse areas. I think that gives a general idea that he's someone who pretty much knows the investment space, understands the business, and has a lot of wisdom to offer to the audience from his rich and varied experience. With that introduction, Rajan, I will hand over the floor to you to please share your thoughts on Qualcomm's experience and anything beyond that would help the audience.
Okay, Sunil, I just need you to enable the sharing here. I'm not able to share my presentation.
Sure. You should be able to share that.
Let me know if you can see the presentation. Can you see it?
Yes, I can, Rajan.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. I think I'm trying to make it.
Can you take it full screen, please? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sunil, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we are able to hear you, Rajan.
And can you see the slides too?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Okay. I'll try to make it a little bit quick if I can, as we have really 30 minutes out of time. So I think Qualcomm doesn't need much introduction, but just let you, in case some people don't know us, we are a company who has taken innovation as a core of our DNA. And over the last 35 years, our focus has been to invent breakthrough technologies that have transformed the way the world is connected or the way we compute or communicate. And now, of course, commute. Our aim is essentially to be an innovator of progress, serving as a industry's R&D engine by anticipating key technology challenges and investing early on to create system-level technology solutions to solve these challenges. And these investments over the many years that we have made helps us advance commercialization or standardization. At the same time, there's considerable risk that we take. But these risks are vital to driving the industry forward. We work with a lot of our ecosystem partners. I was able to hear the conversation just in the panel for quite some time. We work with a lot of the ecosystem partners, operators, regulators, standard bodies, OEMs, startups, academia. And that helps us get a lot of background to what is the need for all of these partners and the market. Since our inception, almost 35 years back, we've invested $71 billion, and we have around 140,000 patents or patent applications, which drive essentially the cutting edge innovations, whether it's chipset software or services or even platform solutions. In India, we have been there for the last 26 years. And it's the second largest base outside of San Diego. We are in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, and Noida. And these teams, what they do here in India, essentially work with the global R&D teams to create these foundational technologies. What we have seen that is happening over the last few years is the world is increasingly moving towards a connected ecosystem. And it's riding on top of the advancement speed in communication, connectivity, compute, and AI. We see that the smartphone which is basically is a birthplace for all of these. The adjacent markets now are leveraging what the smartphone delivers with modifications to use the use cases, suit the use cases. And this we see across multiple industries, be it auto, be it the industry, be it compute, be it AR, VR. A fundamental advantage that the mobile platform brings is power efficiency, size, capabilities, and economies of scale. And this helps in the proliferation of this innovation across these adjacent markets. So a lot of what we see happening around is inspired or derived out of what is happening on the mobile phone. And then, as we all know, 5G. So with 3G and 4G technologies, we began to realize the performance potential of the wireless internet. And it was all about faster data rates or lower latency in connections. And then this paved way for a cloud connection and all the applications that went on and resided on the cloud. With 5G, I believe that wireless will become superior in terms of its networking capabilities and offer the fiber-like speeds at an ultra-low latency. And this actually adds massive capacity to connect billions of the devices which are now going to come on board. And it will power the next generation of applications and services, some of which we would have not even imagined. And 5G is not just a part of internet, I would guess it's the future of internet. It's the fulcrum on which a major pivot will happen in a way that will define the way we live, conduct our lives. Never in the past, in any of the transitions of a G, have we seen a disruption so big. I was reading somewhere yesterday, and it appears that we here in India at times struggle to look at use cases on 5G. And I saw that the operators in China had shortlisted 3,000 use cases, and from that they have decided to pursue 360 odd use cases in the first tranche. So imagine the application of 5G. Sometimes we struggle. Some are known, some are unknown, some will be unraveled as we go ahead. All of this is happening in the background. What is driving all of this is the growth in data consumption. And we live in a world which is a lot different than what we had lived 3-5 years back. With the 4G networks, what we saw was we got connected, we were more agile, maybe more capable. The way we consume media, or we shop, or we socialize, or we collaborate, everything has changed. And this allows us to do more. And now that you put 5G on top of it, what is going to change? It's more intuitive, more capable, and ready for real-time collaboration. Will enable new experiences powered by many of these technologies that are going to evolve and revolve around that. And that will unlock greater capabilities of 5G. I would say we haven't even scratched probably a few, maybe even lower early decimals percentage of the benefits of 5G. And this is where everything then boils down to. And when we look at the impact it has across industries, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but quite a few of these industries are going to get reimagined. A healthcare will look a lot different for both, whether it's a patient or whether it's a healthcare industry. And funny, in India, we sometimes talk about remote surgery. And when I was reading this article in China, it says that they have put it as in the second phase. Some of these use cases are not even getting qualified as the initial first use cases. So imagine there are so much more that is to be unraveled. Startups. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
Rajan, we can.
Okay.
Yes, Rajan. Yeah.
So there have been many of these innovations that have happened, and a lot of startups are fueling these innovations. Manufacturing or Industry 4.0 is going to be another one where we will see some fundamental changes driven with the private networks on 5G. Industrial automation is going to be the focal point. And you'll be surprised that a lot of 3GPP release 15 and 16 standards already cover a good part of industrial automation. We have continued and we keep working on 5G standards to accelerate this automation and the pace of automation. And now we are looking at how 5G will impact, even directly impact things like automotive. In India itself, we are seeing a lot of cars and discussions and even launches rather about on. It started with, like, say, internet inside, but then it's moving towards ADAS. And this is not happening in the premium tier. Even you can see a 10 lakh rupee car talking about, or a 7 lakh rupee car talking about these features. I see that to be a major trend change for India. That's probably, as auto is already picked up and is already using a lot of this connectivity and solutions of connectivity, we see that that market with 5G is going to see some fundamental changes in India. And then one of these topics which is of much debate, which is going on now, is about the Indian semiconductor market. In context of the industry, semiconductor industry, there's an immense opportunity in India. Not only is India one of the largest consumer markets, but is also turning into be an alternative for servicing the global requirements. And we have seen that in case of mobile phones. Earlier this year, we had commissioned a report with IBS, a company who does a consultancy on semiconductors based out of US. And we have some insights which I just wanted to share with you. And they're fairly strong insights, and we believe in quite a few of them. The global semiconductor market is projected to move to around $1.2 trillion in 2030. And today it is around 446 billion. This is a CAGR of 10%. In India, we are at 24 billion. And by 2030, in the same time period, we will go to 110 billion. And this CAGR is 16.5%. So if you see that the global trend and the India trend, we are beating in terms of the CAGR growth. In terms of the semiconductor consumption per person, it's estimated that today we consume around $48 of semiconductor per person in India. And it's likely to go to $125 per person. So if you see that, that's just, I'm talking about the consumption, which is in India. Semiconductor industry is an engineering, it's very engineering intensive. And there are a lot of opportunities we see in India. A lot of these companies, which you heard the name, Qualcomm, Intel, TI, NXP, we all have engineering bases in India, and massive. The global electronics industry is in a high growth mode. And with all the digitization of these many industries, the growth is actually the very reason for what we hear a lot of the shortages of semiconductor. It's related to that. What I believe is that with artificial intelligence, there is going to be another further injection, a boost in the consumption and proliferation of semiconductors. And I personally believe that when we all talk about India, I do not think India in isolation. It has to be that whatever we do in India, it's not just for India. It cannot be just for India, but it has to be for the world. The opportunities are immense. And when we look at the government and their plans to promote semiconductor design and also a fab or manufacturing of semiconductor in India, there is immense sense in it. And as I go ahead on the next two slides, you'll see what I mean. For us in India, it's an opportunity which probably I haven't seen in the last few years, this 3 decades. This is a wonderful opportunity for us for multiple reasons, some of which are more geopolitical than anything else. And India has this opportunity today to become a trusted source for the globe. As a part of the report, I have got these 2 slides which I wanted to share. And they talk about what's the market going to be looking like for India between 2020 and 2030. This slide is on product, and the next one is on the market. The market is moving from around 24 billion to 110 billion, as I said earlier, over the 10 years. It's almost a 5x growth. You see that it's pretty fragmented. and it looks fragmented when you look at the stack. But at the same time, each of these pieces is large enough to be pursued. Notable is that power semiconductor market has strong growth potential. And one of the reasons that I say so is because of the focus of EV market in India, and also because of the node size in power semiconductors. So this is a glaring example of where the country should, or insight, sorry, of where the country should focus, in what product category should they focus as we go ahead to execute on our idea and our objective and our vision of creating fab in India. This one slide is by market. It is segmented among a wide range of applications, and some applications have high strategic value than others. Immediate opportunity for Indian semiconductor companies, startups, or MSMEs, or domestic companies, is in wireless applications. And this could be power management, BMS, or wireless charging, or display drivers. And I'm talking about all of these as a 28 nanometer and above. And one thing good we see as a trend in the report is that this demand stays steady over the next 10 years. The second is of RF designs, and including the Wi-Fi 6 or Bluetooth 5.0 sort of products. And that could be a good product to target for addressing the market, including the growing smartphone market, not just for domestic, because after a very successful PLI scheme which the government launched, we see a sudden demand and opportunity for Indian companies to export, and we have been seeing that. A lot of phones are being exported. So that is another market. And I think personal computers also have a good component contribution coming from the power management. So that is one area I think India could look at, or startups could look at. Additionally, other application would be medical. This I think is something which we should not miss. This is a major opportunity. And while the complexity of the product is not much, there is a lot of sensors and semiconductors that are required. So we see as medical as one of those, semiconductors going into medical use are one of those categories which we should look at. And of course, the EV market and the EV charging market, that's another big one. So the crux of these two slides definitely show that we have a market which is big enough. And within the market, we have segments which can be easily be addressed, which we can think of moving towards making whatever we said as an Atmanirbhar. I know it sounds to be a very lofty goal, but what we also think is there are three different ways we can address this initiative, which was once looking like a dream. It is not the first time we are talking about fab in India. I think all of us who have been in the industry for many years have seen that this is a not a new story. But I think today we are in a position in terms of the, I would say, the market forces are such that there cannot be any other time to start this in a very serious way. And this time around, the first thing we can do is create about the establish a fabless design ecosystem. And as I heard the previous panel talk about how could we do it, I think quite a few of us who run the startup support or challenges, like we run something called Qualcomm Design in India Challenge, we are seriously looking at promoting. Up till now, it was all about hardware and finding hardware companies. And now we are going to move towards finding and supporting, incubating the design companies, semiconductor design companies. So that could be one way. And I would say, when you look at semiconductor Atmanirbharta, it is not about just the fab. I think fab is the most complex part of it. It is about the ecosystem which supports fab, the design ecosystem. I think that should come first. And then, of course, foundry. When we look at various nodes, we believe that the 28 nanometer or anything above that, and the fabs, if established in India at some stage in the near future, can move to 40 and 65 nanometer. They can do all of that, 22 nanometer, 28 nanometer, so the same fab can do it. And that's something which probably could be the lowest hanging fruit for India. If India's aspirations to go straight into fab, then that's the place. Yet, if there is one thing which we can look at is IDMs, and I think IDMs are basically the way to go. So that would probably be the best. And when we look at IDMs or any of these, I think we should never look at India as the market. I think it's India and everything outside. So even when you create a fab in India, it is going to be something which we have to create not just for ourselves but for the global, only for India. I think with that, thank you. I'm not sure if you can still hear me.
Yep, we can hear you. Thank you, Rajan. I think that was
Thank you.
wonderful
Thank you.
talk. Just to summarize some of the key points, I think the change in context that you're referring to is that it's a demand-driven requirement that we have Atmanirbhar capability compared to what it was 15, 20 years ago, where we're more about Atmanirbhar, but necessarily not having the demand. So you just talked about the CAGR and the per capita consumption, where it is very clear that India is a very large growing market. And then I think the focus on not only being local but actually being a trusted source for the globe was, I think, multiple people have stressed on that, and I think once again you're reiterating that we should not be just creating products for local consumption, but the target should be global. And the other aspect that you also mentioned was around making sure that we have an approach which is more IDM driven, which is basically your view is that it has to be design-led innovation for products, but at the same time, when we're looking at constructing it, look at it from an IDM perspective, which is a all in all vertically integrated activity. So I think those are all very key points. But as I told you earlier, a lot of people were waiting for you to come and do your talk. So you have a bunch of questions, which I hope you have time to answer. This is from the audience. The first question is, Rajan, with your vast background, what is your opinion on how to build Indian product development companies in the ESDM space as part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat? I know you gave a few tips, right? One was around, basically look for creating global products. Second one is if you're going to take an approach, make it design driven. Third was if you're going to do a manufacturing stuff, do it from an IDM perspective. So those were all tips, but I think how would you build Indian product development companies? Because you did outline that from a consumption point of view, there's a lot of opportunity, but what should product companies do? I mean, how should they approach this market?
I think, unfortunately, fortunately, the field which we talk about, ESM, is all about scale. So one of the big challenges we would see as which we'll have to address is about scale. Economies of scale typically are the ones which are going to be impacting the success of our companies. So one option is that do not get into a fast track expressway lane. The way you enter an expressway, you typically take a side road and then you gradually merge into the highway. It looks very lucrative when you see 5G phones or 4G phones being sold and somebody decides, okay, I'm going to do something in 5G. I would rather go and do some small products and then gain the expertise, right? For example, I would say, as we are doing maybe some products related to Open RAN or infrastructure, these are because the consumption and the volumes are not going to be that huge to start with. Those sort of opportunities exist in many other businesses. So you might want to pick up something which is more on the infrastructure of telecom, for example. I'm just taking one example, where the volumes initially are going to be small, prices are going to be still flexible. There isn't going to be a volume driven pricing. It's going to be just a lot of NRE gets loaded at the early stage of the chip design. So I would say it's more tolerant to higher pricing. So that is where I would say we should get in design rather than going into something which is like, for example, I would be very, I would say conservative if somebody wants to say I want to design an IoT chip or something which goes into a mass volume, because then the scale is going to be coming in your way.
So second question, since you mentioned medical technology, very interesting, something that we should focus on. But the general perception is the semiconductor component in medical technology is not very high, at least from Indian consumption perspective. So maybe it is from a global. So why medical technology? You did call it out. So just a question.
I think one is when I meant medical technology, I should be careful when I say this, but let's say a recent pandemic and what we saw, right? a lot of home care came up as a need. And because of the mass and whatever infrastructure we have, we still were able to manage it somehow. But we all have seen the second wave, which hit us hard. If there are solutions which we can develop in medical field, in healthcare, where remote health is we can manage, and this is not just about the semiconductor which goes in it, but also about the final product and the service and the platform associated with it. I think those are huge markets which weren't there 6 months back, or were there but not that visible. Or so if somebody is getting into that sort of a field, I would say it's that thing is not going to go away. The need for home health care is going to go and proliferate. I would say if there are solutions we can design, whether right from the semiconductor itself or the platform or the software or the end product, I think that would be helpful for a market like India.
Yeah. To clarify, then what you're saying is look at the solution, not component, and see where you can play a large role, where you have an advantage and not have to worry about it, if I understood you right. Thank you for clarifying that. We have two more questions for you before I kind of wrap up. One is directly related to Qualcomm. The question is, like you mentioned earlier, Qualcomm is funding or being actively collaborating with several startups to enable the ecosystem, like you mentioned earlier. How many are there in the 5G space? Are there plenty in India specifically? How many are given, just are there many, are there few, or, just to get an idea?
So when we run this program called Qualcomm Design in India Challenge, primarily it was started because we saw that this market, and this is the 6th year we are in that program. And why we did it was because we didn't see too many of hardware startups. We mostly would see soft startups in the software field. And we decided that with the infrastructure what we have, probably we can incubate quite a few of them, help them, because that's a difficult one, because you need a lot of commercialization help, a lot of engineering help, a lot of testing and validation help. So we got into that, and over the 6 years, we have identified, we have probably, I would say, we have uh, we've engaged with probably more than 100 startups. We saw almost 1,000 plus startups participating. Of that, 100 startups have been, we have engaged with them. Around 77 we have incubated. These are primarily on the hardware side, let me tell you. Now, and most of them, quite most, I would say, substantial amount of them are leveraging connectivity. Now, I'll take one example that we have a startup which makes industrial robots. Now with 5G, and they're moving from 4G to 5G. So it doesn't start with 5G, to be honest. But the moment you throw in 5G or a millimeter wave 5G connectivity, an industrial robot can do so much more. Those startups are moving to 5G. So what is surprising is that when we invite startups now, they've already started thinking about leveraging 5G in the design itself, which wasn't happening a year back. So I would say anything that is on 4G essentially will move with 5G, and sometimes you may just neglect it and say, oh, why do I need 5G? But trust me, the moment you see the goodness of 5G and the various aspects of 5G, the startups are able to find more innovations that they can implement in the solution. So we are seeing most of the startups now working on including 5G as a part of the connectivity in the solutions.
Okay, thank you. I think if I understood you right, what you're saying is 5G opens up a whole new world for startups to create either incremental solutions to what they already have or to look at new possibilities. So thank you for that. And we have one last question for you, which is again a long question for the audience, but I hope we'll be able to read this. So the question is, 5G, AI, and ML will change the world like we never knew before. How can we create an integrated ecosystem connecting academia, industry, startups, MSMEs to kind of spur? I know Qualcomm, you just talked about the Qualcomm Design Challenge and several initiatives. But beyond Qualcomm as an industry, how can we do something to maybe turbo boost the ecosystem to move in terms of, especially the startups and MSMEs? How do we empower, enable? Some thoughts on how the industry can come together to make it happen.
I think industry is also already doing it, I would say. So on our part, we are doing it. I would say I've seen a lot of other companies also doing it. So like the startup program, and not that's the only one I mentioned, but we work with academia. There's a Qualcomm Innovation Fellowship program we run as a part of a larger program, working with the postgraduate students of of colleges, and that actually is a program where you identify some cutting edge new research which they are doing, and then funding them and helping them. That's one. So that's already helping. Now, can we scale that? I think that's the right answer. We should scale that. That's possibly the answer. The second is importance of patent and understanding how IP is critical for all of us. This is so fundamental that we realize we actually, and probably Qualcomm is one company who knows patents and understands the value of patents and respects the value of patent. And we thought that each one of us should also understand it. So we started educating. We work with DPIT to and just try to teach the value and how to file the patents or what's the importance of patents right from the school level. So very early in the school itself, innovations are then you start getting ideas. Oh, can I own this? So the ownership sense comes in, the respect sense comes when you own patents, right? So that is also another one. India needs that more and more. Apart a lot of the startups, but within the startups, and we have one of the most robust startup ecosystem, right? So if we have such huge technical startups or technology-based startups, like say 10,000 of them, each one of them should be looking at filing IPs. That is one of the big ones. So I would say this is not an overnight program. For one example, like when we look at 100 semiconductor startups or companies to promote in India is what we are targeting to start with. A modest start. If you have to just compare what China does, it's 60,000. What Korea does is 2,000, right? And we are looking to start with 100. But mind you, even 100 is good enough to start. We should start, and this is a journey. This cannot be done overnight. It has taken 30 years for some countries to be where they are. And if today we want to do it, we cannot shorten the 30 years and say, okay, I'm going to do it in 2 years. I would say a good modest target would be 8 to 10 years. Industry's participation is at all-time high. Government's focus is at all-time high. PLIs and schemes to promote semiconductor design are at all-time high. I do not think, and again, the circumstances are such that this is the most suitable time. So it's like all the stars coming together. And then we as conscious and all of us who are here should take advantage of that and leverage that to take our country to the next level.
Thank you, Rajan. I think you summarized it perfectly. I think this is the right timing, the right opportunity. Like you said, the stars are aligning, both from a global perspective and also from a within India perspective, whether it's the local ecosystem, the government, academia, everyone is coming together. So thank you very much for sharing your time with us today. And I'm sure the audience really benefited. And again, thank you for your flexibility and for the delay.
Thank you so much.
So thank you, Rajan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for the